Moments with God, a time of reflection for every day.
February 13th. Facing the enemies. But this thou hast, that thou hatest the deeds of the Nicolaitanes, which I also hate. Revelation 2:6.
It is easier to fight against direct opposition and overt enemies than against those who camouflage themselves and seek to harm from within. To corrupt a church, it is necessary to destroy its fundamental principles, thus leading it into apostasy. But as long as the church remains faithful and its leaders seek the Lord, nothing can prevail against it. In the first century, the church had to confront enemies who wanted to destroy the faith from within. They were knowledgeable about the scriptures, they read the Bible, but they mixed the purity of the gospel with pagan philosophies to create a much lighter and cheaper version. These people were a sect within Christianity, known as the Nicolaitans. Their origin is uncertain, but what we do know is about their teachings. They sought to introduce immorality and idolatry into Christianity.
Their doctrine was liberal, God's grace covers sins, and anything is permissible. Ultimately, God does not hold anyone who has accepted the gospel of Christ accountable for their sin. They taught that if the physical body commits a sin, it does not corrupt the soul, since body and soul are two separate things, according to Nicolaitan doctrine.
This argument served to protect their immoral sins, and not only that, but they wanted the Christian church to adopt this way of believing. In doing so, they disregarded God's holy law, which sets limits on the unrestrained expression of passions. Without God's law, one cannot call something a sin, nor know whether something is good or evil. Therefore, the Nicolaitan doctrine attacked God's law, and this doctrine hasn't remained in the past. Even today, it's taught that God's law is no longer important, that the blood of Christ has covered everything, and that there's no need to keep the law, and the attack on God's law continues, because the leaders of Christian churches say that it's no longer relevant.
The doctrine that the gospel of Christ has abolished the law of God, that by believing we are freed from the need to be doers of the word, is now widely taught. But this is the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, which Christ so relentlessly condemned. Why?
The church in Ephesus stood firm against these heretical doctrines, refusing to allow such teachers, who claim to be apostles, to introduce these teachings, and God commends this work of the church. But today it is we whom God calls to confront the popular lie that God's law no longer needs to be kept. It is up to us to exalt His law, since rather than abolish it, God chose the manger and the cross. Do not accept a watered-down gospel, one that does not honor all of God's law, that is against God's will. Amen. Why?
Thank you for listening to this audio. We invite you to share with your contacts and visit the website BibleWell.com.